You are more consistent than you think you are. Consistency is merely just repetition of one thing multiple times. Yet we often say, I am not a consistent person because we aren't consistent with hard things. And obviously, it's more difficult to be consistent with things that we don't really want to do because it involves more discomfort. Yet you are more consistent than you think you are because there are things that you do every single day, and that is ultimately what consistency is. Now, here's the thing. I think we often get consistency and discipline confused. And that is what I want to hit on for today's episode, because I think there is a big difference here. And once we understand exactly what it is, I think we can then actually apply where is consistency in my life, where is discipline in my life, and how can I improve both areas. So consistency, as I mentioned, is merely just repetition. If you wake up every single day at, let's say, 7:30, and you brush your teeth every single morning, that is consistency. Now, the thing is if you say, all right, I'm being consistent with this thing, but I want to wake up at 6:30 a.m. and brush my teeth, right? That's a little bit harder, right? Let's say that you're waking up an hour earlier. That involves more of discipline. Discipline is an internal decision to merely say, what am I saying yes to and what am I saying no to? In this scenario, you would say yes to sacrificing or making a decision to have 1 hour less of sleep for some reason, whatever you want. And that consistency would then be doing that thing over and over and over again. All right, and to make this simpler, I actually looked up, I went on ChatGPT and I said, what is the difference between consistency and discipline? Consistency refers to the ability to repeatedly perform a particular action or behavior over time, right? Waking up at 6:30 multiple times in a row. Discipline involves self-control, willpower, and adherence to rules or principles. Actually making the decision in your head and then following it through by actually hitting that alarm clock and getting out of your bed. That is the discipline. The discipline is a very internal game. The consistency is a very big external game, right? Because it's more of a repeatable, external, tangible thing. So I think this is something super important because a lot of people say, oh, I'm not a consistent person, or I struggle to be consistent. And it's not merely you struggle to be consistent, it's we struggle to be consistent with harder things because they are more uncomfortable. And I've often been asked, how do I maintain consistency with nutrition or with my exercise or with my mental fitness practice or my organization or time management? And honestly, those are all things that, yes, I have gotten to a point where I'm happy with them. And I also want to continually improve upon them because I'm still working on getting better at them. Yet there's one thing that I have learned that has helped me immensely in maintaining consistency with something that I want to do, while also being disciplined enough to make the decision to actually do it. And remember, the discipline is more of that internal willpower, that decision to actually do the thing. The consistency is just the repetition of that decision. The thing that keeps me disciplined to making those decisions and consistent with the repetition of the behavior is this idea of negative visualization. And I wrote it down here, and I've heard this before and I never knew that I was actually doing it. And I actually heard it today. I was being interviewed by somebody and they said, oh, so you use negative visualization to keep yourself consistent with these things. And I was like, yeah, that's actually exactly what I do. I'd never really made that connection. But basically, if there's one thing that I want to be consistent with, what I do is I think about what would happen if I actually wasn't consistent with this thing. And I think about it in the most extreme terms. So then it scares me a lot. What this ends up doing is it ends up actually pushing me back into the consistency because that fear is so painful to me that it actually ends up redirecting me into the consistent thing, and doing the consistent behavior actually becomes easier because the fear was more painful. And so I use that for not only the consistent behavior, but also for the internal decision. It's the same thing, right? If I don't make this internal decision, what ends up happening, right? So an example would be, hey, let's say that I want to wake up at 5 a.m. each day and go to the gym. All right, the consistent behavior is waking up Monday through Friday at 5 a.m. The decision or the discipline here is, hey, I need to make sure that I'm in bed by a certain hour. I need to make sure that when that alarm clock goes off, I don't snooze it. I need to make sure that when that alarm clock goes off, I turn it off, and then I get out of bed and I continue literally moving, getting my stuff on, drinking a glass of water, and then getting out the door, right? That is the actual decision. So what I think about in my head is, okay, if I do hit this alarm clock and I go back to bed, what ends up happening? Well, the negative visualization in my head is I end up sleeping till 7:30, 8 o'clock. I miss the workout. I then have breakfast. That breakfast is not fulfilling any workout that I just did. And now I'm starting my day with food in my stomach that I don't really feel like is going to the muscles, right, or giving me energy. I feel like I'm just kind of sitting with a meal in my stomach, and then I'm starting my day. And then in my head, I'm like, when can I work out now today? And so now I have to kind of add in this additional hour to 2 hours into my day that I hadn't already planned for. And so that is what actually scares me into doing the thing that I want to do, which is wake up early and go to the gym. So whenever you are thinking about something in your life that you just want to be more consistent with, think about the pain if you aren't consistent with that thing. And think about the pain if you aren't disciplined to make the decision to do that thing over and over and over again. Because if that fear is powerful enough, and if that fear is painful enough, like if we really do not want that result, that is what I believe actually helps keep us in the behavior that we want, right? It's good to actually have pain. It's good to actually have these things that we really don't want because it steers us in a direction that we do want. And so that's something that I do actively all the time in my head, is I just think about what happens if I actually don't maintain consistency with this behavior, or what happens if I don't have the internal willpower or the internal decision-making process to make the decision to maintain this consistency. What could happen? And that gets scary, right? And that's where you can use that fear, you can use that possibility, like that negative possibility or a negative visualization, to actually keep yourself in the positive behavior. All right. Consistency is merely repetition. The discipline is, what do I say yes to or what do I say no to, right? And that's really that internal decision. Okay. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Episode number whatever of the Libraries and Weight Rooms podcast. I'm not keeping track anymore. I'm just kind of letting it rip. So as always, if you guys got some value from this episode, please give us a rating on Spotify or leave a review on iTunes or a comment on YouTube. Always grateful. So thank you guys so much. And everybody, keep doing hard things. And we'll talk to you next week. We'll see you.